Welcome back for another episode of Arthritic Bourbon Bikers. We're still in Florida, obviously. Finishing up 2 weeks over the Christmas New Year holiday, enjoying the warm weather. What are we going to talk about today, Jer?
I got to take one issue with the fact that we call it Bourbon Bikers, but there's not been any bourbon on this trip.
There has not. It's been vodka and rum and lots of other things, but there's been not hardly any bourbon, even though we've seen a few places that had bourbon, but it's just not as prominent in the drinks here.
Yeah.
So we've been partaking of whatever the local spirits are.
Yeah.
And vodka seems to have won out. Vodka and rum has won out in this trip. So
yeah. So there's that. Thought I'd just clear the air.
Yes.
On that. Well, kind of this is our last full day.
Yep.
And thought maybe we could just wrap up some of the thoughts about our experiences with the bikes on this trip, because it's not like the other stuff we've done before.
Right. Yes, that's true. That's true.
We've used it as a commuter type of situation.
Yes.
Hauling cargo.
Yeah. So I guess a little background, maybe if folks aren't familiar with what we're doing here, this is 2 weeks. We're on Little Gasparilla Island. And this is an island you can only get to by water taxi or boat of some sort. There's no real bridge or anything, or not even really a ferry to this part of the island. You have to take a water taxi, basically. And so the idea for most people is they either have a boat or they bring a lot of provisions with them and then stay here for the week and then go home. But we've got 5 teenage boys from ages 15 to 20, who, let's just say they're solid. Most of them are solid eaters. And then we've got 4 adults with the wives here with us. And so we've got 9 people we're feeding. And we're in a 2-story house. A lot of food, basically. So we did go by the grocery store and kind of stock up for one big run. But there's only so much you can carry in one load when you're taking a water taxi. So
they limit the cargo. They limit the passengers.
Yeah.
And it's not cheap. It's an expensive endeavor.
Yeah, it's basically, $10 a person
one way, and that has to all be scheduled. You can't just it doesn't just run all the time. You have to actually coordinate with someone to make that happen, unlike a traditional ferry that might have hours where they run back and forth all the time. So what was the idea then? Basically, you kind of scoped this out. You've been here before. This is my first time here, but you've been here before. What was the idea when you kind of scoped this out? Yeah, I actually a few months ago was in the area and just drove up to the ferry up the North Island, which is really kind of connected, and talked to them. And I did a little bit of reconnaissance at the marina where the water taxi is, and kind of hatched a plan that we would get all of us over here with our luggage and the bikes, and one round of food and drink and stuff. And then if it were possible, we could take the bikes with a bunch of bags and go up to the north part of the island, and then there's a stretch of beach where you have to, that's pretty much the only way to get there, is on the beach. And then take the ferry and see if we could just restock that way.
Yeah, so what you've got are 2 islands that are kind of connected, but this one stretch, the only way they're connected is by beachfront.
And maybe some swampy stuff, perhaps.
Yeah, it's kind of like, a bunch of just swamp and water and stuff in a kind of a state park. But from here to that ferry, from this location to where that actual ferry is at, even if you went all the way down this beach, it's roughly 5 miles.
Yes, 5 miles.
Almost exactly 5 miles, actually, to get to that ferry. So anyway, the idea is that could we utilize the bicycles, navigate that beach section to get to that ferry, which runs regularly up until like 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, on the weekends,
later hours. And use the bicycles to bring back food, but also to provide some adventure so we could do day rides and kind of go out and see things that were out there. So that was kind of...
Yeah, it turned out to be pretty fun, too, you know. Used the different bags, the panniers, the just dry bags, strapped them on there, got some handlebar bags. Yeah. Used the cages on the front fork. That was fun. It's always an adventure there. And so I think it was a success. I think we did pretty well with that. We carried some serious cargo back.
lots of weight that we were able to really cycle on the beach with too, for
Right.
the most part.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but the adventures you talked about, that's worth really, I think, talking a little more about.
Yeah, carry on. You're going to hear some noise in the background. There's yard work and tree trimming and all kinds of things going on here, so apologize if there's noise, but carry on.
Well, so we're by Boca Grande, which is an island that's historically relevant, I think, but it's nice down there, higher end homes, and that has a bridge, and so we rode there a couple times. I bought some earrings for my wife, and we had some lunch and saw a couple of lighthouses,
Yeah.
state park.
You kind of go over a toll bridge
Yeah.
there to get to Boca Grande, and then you've got some really great paths to ride. So a lot of what you see here is really nice bike lanes on the highways, or they'll have really wide biking pedways is what I kind of call them, that are made for bikes and people walking. Now when you get to Boca Grande though, it's like cart path. So the big thing are golf carts. Everybody just driving golf carts, but has a separate path for the golf carts that's off the side. That's really nice, paved, blacktop.
Yeah. Top notch.
Pretty easy riding. But so one of the things though that kind of comes to mind for me is that we've had the full expanse of mixed surfaces here.
Yeah.
So everything from what the lady had called it sugar sand the other day was the term she used. Just we're talking powdery, light, white, fluffy sand, all the way to sort of hard pack, to even in the state park that we were riding through, some to get to the ferry to get across to the mainland. There were even areas where there was cactus and sandburrs and all kinds of stuff that you had to encounter, to gravel,
Yeah.
to pavement, sidewalk.
Yeah. And even through water, right? So we had
Water.
some standing water on the island, and if you have to get down into the packed sand in some cases, and the surface coming up.
Yeah.
And so that's really when you're going to get sand in your workings. But the other thing at the state forest, the sandy stuff, there were patches of that were just laced in with pine needles, and it made almost like a net.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah, one day we did a ride out to the state forest area, Mayaca River, right?
Yeah.
It's the Mayaca State Forest is what it's called. We rode out there, and then there's a bunch of trails that you can ride, kind of double track-ish.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little rougher than double track in
Yeah.
places, because they have a lot of wild boar here that just tear up
Yeah.
the areas, the roads, the sides of the roads. I mean, it just looks like someone took a shovel and turned up sand upside down
For large patches.
yeah,
too.
long periods of time, and so you have to ride over that. And so we rode all the way back into the river, where there were some campsites and stuff, and kind of made a circle, and then sort of had to sneak up under a fence to get out from underneath there and get out on a road and all kinds of adventure.
Yeah.
But that was fun. But I guess the point is that you need to be prepared for mixed surfaces if you're going to do something like this, because when you get out on that sand, you're going to need tires that are a little bit wider, a little bit more traction,
Let the air out.
deflated, as we learned. If you listen to the last podcast, you know that we figured that out. It really is mixed surface, and you're going to get on a ferry, and you're going to be on blacktop for a while and sidewalks for a while, and so our kind of daily journey was usually somewhere between 30 and 40 miles, just on average. Each day we tried to do kind of like 30 to 40 mile adventure to go kind of see something. Then on the way back, we would come back by a supermarket
Yeah, hit the
Publix.
quartermaster.
and pick up provisions. And so the ladies would send us a list. We'd either like have a list prepared the night before, or they'd text us the list of the items that need to be picked up. And we successfully brought home the largest grocery run that I've ever seen on bicycles, personally.
Yeah.
Maybe other people have done it, but that's personally the largest run I've seen on bicycles. We had a load. It was a giant cart full of...
Yeah. Yeah. You look at the cart and you think, there's no way this is going on.
Yeah,
bikes.
it was pretty amazing.
We even
And-
took some things out of the cardboard boxes
yeah.
and packed them in our bags and ditched the
We
packaging.
had 12 packs of soda. We had Like half gallons of milk. We had eggs. We had all kinds of stuff. Like the variety was there. It was bread and eggs. So you get into that adventure of figuring out, how do I pack bread and eggs on a bicycle and get them home
Intact.
safely?
Golden intact.
We only busted one egg, which I think was pretty amazing.
Out of 18.
Out of 18.
That's good.
That's pretty good. And we didn't like totally squash the bread. I think there was just some creative uses of how to get things on a bicycle and get them home. Because you have to remember that from the store, from Publix to here is 7 miles.
Yeah.
That's
5 of that is sandy stuff.
Yeah, 2 miles to get to the ferry. You cross with the ferry, and then you have to ride 5 miles from the ferry to here, and part of it being beach, mixed terrain to get it back to the house. So part of the adventure was really fun. In fact, I was telling Jerry, this was way more fun than I even gave it credit originally, because we just, every day was different. Every day we did a little bit of something different. There was always the adventure of getting all the stuff on the bike, whether it was strapping a pineapple to the rack on the forks, or and using those rubber, Revelate
My
straps.
favorite was the 1 3/4 liter of Absolute on one side and pineapple on the other.
Right.
That was my favorite. That was pretty fun.
I guess the point is that even with a large group of people like this, we were able to really keep ourselves well stocked in provisions and food to keep everybody going. I mean, these boys can go through chips. Holy cow.
Chips and soda.
Chips are one of those things, though, you don't think about, but they take up a tremendous amount of space for not a lot of quantity of food, I guess, so to speak. So we got pretty good at packing those into the panniers. But we mentioned several times, I've said it and you've said it too, that we use the Arkel Dry Light panniers because they're just so darn lightweight, and they roll up into a little roll that's really packable and easy to get in a car. Yeah. But man, we kept those on the bikes, and we were using those constantly.
Yeah. It's like the back pocket of your jeans.
Yeah.
They're just fantastic.
You couple that with a couple of dry bags. One of them's a huge dry bag.
Yeah.
That Fabio's chest that you have on the front, which can hold a tremendous amount of stuff, and then some racks and just creative placement. You can carry a lot of stuff. At one point, we used one of the really big dry bag to pack a whole bunch of cold stuff in.
Yeah.
And get back on that monster run that we did. And that seemed to not only hold the temperature pretty well, because we had all the cold stuff together, and we'd buy a couple of packages of frozen vegetables to use sort of like ice packs and chuck them in there. But also, we should talk about that cooler backpack thing that you
got. So I don't even know the brand name. It's just something my wife and I bought on one of our little trips together. It's just a backpack, and it's comfortable. It's insulated, holds its shape really well.
Yeah.
And man, we brought seafood back, and the ice was not really melted.
Yeah, we went to a fish market, a local fish market, and bought, gosh, I don't know how many pounds, probably 9 pounds of fish, and
so much so that
and,
the cashier did a double take and said, "Are you
she wanted
sure?"
to make sure we knew how much we were spending. But we bought about 9 pounds of seafood, and it was a mixture of shrimp and fish the first time we went. The second time was stone crab and fish.
We had some scallops in there.
And scallops, yeah. So the first time we put a trash bag in it just in case there was a lot of water. Now this thing's made for cold stuff, so I'm assuming it's probably fine if it gets water in it anyway. But we were just trying to kind of safety it up. So we did kind of a trash bag in there, then put some ice, then put the fish and stuff in it, and then another plastic bag with ice on top. And we were gone, gosh, I don't know, probably 3 hours or so before on the way back.
Didn't we even eat? We went and had lunch.
Yeah, we went and had lunch.
With this bag packed.
Yeah, and then we came back.
And then we went to Publix, threw some cheese on the top.
It was 3 or 4 hours, I'd say.
Yeah.
And the ice barely had melted. There was maybe a couple tablespoons of water in it. So the insulative value of it's really good.
It's great.
And it's
comfortable.
Yeah, it's like a Coleman or a Igloo or something brand backpack, but it's big enough, probably this tall, this big around, roughly. You can wear it on your back.
You could even honestly use it as a carry-on or a personal item on a flight And then because Brenda and I have done this, gone to Hollywood Beach or something like that for just a few days, and that could be your bag to take your lunch and your drinks to the beach with you. And then when you're done, make sure it's clean. That's kind of like to do the trash bag, keep the odors out and stuff. But then, on the way on the plane, you can just shove some of your clothes in it or something.
Yeah.
It's really pretty versatile setup.
That worked out to be a really useful thing to have along. We didn't really have a lot of concern, even with the dry bag. We had good luck with stuff staying cold, hamburger meat, eggs, milk.
Yeah.
It worked fine in a dry bag, even sort of throwing some frozen vegetables in there and rolling it up, sealing it up, and then strapping it on the bike. In fact, in that one instance, we put that on the handlebars.
Mm-hmm.
We strapped this big pile of stuff
Yeah.
on the handlebars once, one of the Ogre. One time we did it on the racks and stuff. So you can come up with all kind of creative things with bungee cords and Revelate straps.
And we even we did a lot of grilling. You did a lot of grilling, but we even had some really thick cut pork steaks one night.
Yeah.
And again, those were generous pork steaks.
Yeah.
The meat cutter did them kind of. We told him we needed 9 of them. He kind of did them separately, and they packed in pretty nicely in that thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was going to also mention just the fact that people will bring these carts and things to the beach, which is great. But if you do have a bike that'll weather the terrain with big tires, I use that. Because on some of those days we were coming back and didn't really even didn't need to go to the grocery store. So I packed some things that I might want for the beach because we knew the girls would be on the beach and we'd run into them on the way back, and then I would just stop there and wait until even after sunset, because that's when some of the real show starts, is after the sun sets and the clouds are fantastic.
Yeah, a good day for us would be to leave in the mornings and go out and ride. We would have lunch out somewhere, and then on our ride back, we'd kind of come down the beach, because we had to do that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We cross over on the ferry, we have to come down the beach anyway. We'd just ride down the beach. We kind of knew the general area that the family would be hanging out at. Yeah. And we'd just sort of meet up there, and it worked out to be good for sunset time. And then we were just a short ride back to the house then, or whatever. But you can carry
lights
and gear and
towels, everything.
Towels, all that stuff.
Yeah, so it's a good. I'm calling it the beach donkey.
Yeah. And there's a couple things that we didn't really use a lot, but when you did use them, were handy. I think that Lucy light is one of those things. Like, you talk about items. You can check out the Lucy light, and I know a lot of people who are in the sailing world are familiar with the Lucy lights. They use them as well, but it's just this like inflatable little plastic puff bag, if you want to call it that, sort of cylindrically shaped, which you kind of blow up. But then in the top of it is a built-in solar panel with a battery and everything in it, and you just set it in the sun, and it'll charge itself up, and then you can turn it on. It's got LEDs in it, and it sort of lights up the little globe. The little puffy thing becomes the globe. Mm-hmm. That thing, and it just, you deflate it, and it's this thick.
Like a puck.
Yeah, it looks like a puck. It's like this thick and this big around, and you can throw it in a bag, and it will light up. And I don't know what the life on it. How many hours it lights up, because we never used it that long. But just a handy thing you can throw on your bike.
Great for anything, for bike packing, for camping, anything you're doing. Like you mentioned, sailing. It's a great little item.
You can hang it in your tent, and it's going to light up your tent just fine, to hang out. You can hang it out off. I've seen people hang them off trees. People carry multiple, so they have a couple on each side. Mm-hmm. It's rechargeable in the sun. You don't have to carry batteries or anything.
It's not heavy.
It's like paper. It's so
pretty,
lightweight.
Pretty fantastic.
It's a great thing to put in your kit.
Looks like you could repair it pretty easily if it did get a hole. If you could find the puncture hole, little clear tape or something probably would do the trick, I would think.
Yeah, and I think that it's not. Yeah, the inflatable part really doesn't have to stay like inflated. It's just to sort of expand the little globe thing. It seems like almost. Yeah. So it's not a big deal, I don't think, even if it got a little poked hole in it or whatever. But it's a neat little item. I think they're like $15 to $20 on Amazon. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They had some specials going for a while, had them on sale, but it's something you should check out if you want something lightweight, rechargeable. Because we're all out there, in some kind of sunlight usually, or some sort of light. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like it takes that much to charge it up. So
it's a good item.
Yep.
So I don't know. I just thought it was a good opportunity to kind of wrap it all up, but
I think we learned some things, that's for sure, about just the terrain
Yeah.
that we were riding on, and then just using the bikes for something completely different, which was hauling groceries.
Yeah.
That's not something that I've done ever.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. It's fun. It really was
It
fun.
worked out though.
So, but I had a question to ask because I could
Yep.
I made some notes here. What's next? Because I know you had talked about doing a review on the Ogre you rode for a couple weeks.
Yeah, so what's next is I want to do sort of a quick review on the Ogre because this is Jerry's bike. It's the first time I'd spent any time on it. A little bit about the bike itself and then about kind of how it's set up currently, the things I liked and didn't like. And again, we all know that with the bike packing or biking stuff in general, it's all personal preference largely. So whatever's comfortable for you, but I wanted to do a review of the Ogre because I think it's a great bike, but I'm gonna work on that next, and then
Okay.
that's
And
kind of what I'm looking at.
we had talked about maybe putting together a year-end kind of review of the Fargo because I've made a ton of modifications to it. It's been a lot of adventures so far.
So how long has it been over a year?
It's been over a year. It's actually probably been a year and
Yeah.
about 5 months, something like that.
Yeah.
Probably, and I figure I'd put in, I don't know, at least 2,000, maybe 2,500 miles on the thing.
Well, in 1 month there you did 700 miles, wasn't it?
Yeah, this past summer.
Because you did the bike across South Dakota thing, and that was 500, right?
Yeah, it
So
was 502.
yeah,
That last
so-
2 miles were the hardest.
Exactly. So we're gonna do a couple of reviews. I think about the bikes a little bit. I think that's coming. I think that if there's one thing that this trip has sort of gotten me excited about was just riding these fatter tired bikes, mountain bike style tires. We're running like 2.5s and 2.6 inch tires on these bikes, and one of the things just in general that I learned on this trip was just how much fun it was to not be concerned. Number one, tubeless.
Yeah.
How fantastic tubeless has been on this trip. I mean, we've been riding over thousands upon thousands of broken shells,
Seashells.
and if you know anything about that, you know how they're sharp and they can cut tires and stuff. We've had zero issues.
Cut right there. From
You got one to prove it. Zero issues with flat tires. We've ridden through cactus areas and sandbur areas with no problems. We've ridden on blacktop. and
broken glass.
Broken glass.
On the side of the road.
We all know what some of the sides of the roads are like when you're riding. And we've just had zero issues. But I was mentioning this yesterday to Jerry that the comfort factor that I think you get out of these wider tire bikes is something I've come to appreciate more and more on this trip. Yes, it's maybe a little slower, more rolling resistance, all this stuff. We've been having this conversation off and on, but man, there's something really nice about just the flotation.
Yeah.
Riding on sidewalks. We've been riding on a ton of sidewalks with lots of seams and transitions between curbs and all that stuff, and they just kind of float over that stuff, and you don't really notice the bumps and stuff as much with the wider tire bikes. So I've been inspired to even further to look at a potential tire bike with wider tires to do this kind of stuff. It's just comfortable. I mean, you still get tired. I mean, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of slogging along because, like you say, 30 to 40 miles of that with with a bunch of ballast is a big deal.
And usually at least 10 miles of sand, honestly, riding through 10 miles of sand. If you don't think that's going to affect you, try riding through 10 miles of sand.
You're tired.
Yeah.
the end of
Especially at the end of the
day.
day when you're on your way back and you're carrying 50 pounds of groceries. But
Yeah, but out here it's fun. It's not work. It was really fun.
We're, it's supposed to be 79 degrees today, and it's January the 3rd. So,
That does bring me to a thought, though, that, this, you got to talk about the valves. You got the Presta and the Schrader valves. And I think the Presta valves are so nice to let air out. You just unscrew the thing and psst, and it comes right out.
Yeah.
But not all of the tire pumps can accommodate that, so you might have to get an adapter.
Yeah.
The other Schrader ones are probably more common out there, but it makes me think I need a higher volume pump for these things. If you want to go from sand to tarmac or something, you're really going to have to.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the pumps that we've been using are the pumps we had previously for other bikes, and they're really more high pressure pumps, I'd say, to go to 90 to 100 psi.
Yeah.
So they do make some better pumps possibly for high volume, the high volume style pumps to put air in these tires. Because we never really ran over about 30 PSI. Even when we went by the car, so we would take the ferry and sometimes go by the marina where our cars are parked and get out a big tire pump occasionally and pump them up. They also do have some of those service points on a few of the trails we were at that you could use their pump there. But 30 PSI was kind of what we were shooting for on most of those. And then when we were lowering it down, I was checking when I would hook up to pump them up with air. It was somewhere between 12 and 15 PSI was what we were kind of running when we were on the sand in these tires. And that makes a huge difference, as we talked about in the last podcast. So But yeah, it makes me want to, when we get back, I'd like to test ride a large version of the Fargo, because what Jerry has is a medium frame and it feels a little small to me, but I'd like to compare it to a large. And then I'd like to ride a large ECR and see how that feels. The Ogre that you have is a large, and that frame size is good for me, it feels like. But yeah, I'd like to check out a couple things and then maybe investigate a bike purchase to do for this next year, something with big tires, just for fun. Certainly is a lot of fun hopping off curbs and doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah,
you just don't think about doing it in the smaller bikes.
I noticed because I've been going through this because the Fargo, but I've noticed on this trip your style of riding has been a little more reckless.
Yeah, that's what I said. I could totally become a jerk on a bike like this with people around, because it's just, you don't think anything about riding off the sidewalk or into the grass, over anything, through anything. You don't. We talked about this. You don't worry about running through a gravelly spot on the side of the road or a sandy spot on the side of the road. On the other bikes, we would be more careful about a gravel spot or a sand spot. And we've talked multiple times about your incident of riding on a wet wooden sort of walkway on one of the trails that just gets so slick. And there was an incident with
ice skating.
Yeah, with a skinny tire bike that you can totally lose it. And what's funny is one day we were riding and we came to the end of this area to kind of check out the river, and there were a couple of road cyclists there. And I say older, he's probably our age or something like that, maybe slightly older. And his wife, and we looked down. This dude has the biggest piece of road rash on his fresh road rash on his kind of the side of his knee, with a big old bandage stuck over it,
on there,
with blood coming through the bandage. And you knew he had taken a spill that morning probably, and he was still happy.
He was loving it though. He was snacking and they were cutting up.
But definitely he had taken a spill for some reason. And I have no idea the story. I didn't want to bring it up because you don't want to. If it was something that was a negative thing, I didn't want to bring it up and try to ruin his day or anything. But it was a beautiful setting, but you could look down. It made me think that's probably something happened. Either you hit a sandy spot, a wet spot, or something, and just zip fell over somehow. Yeah. Or maybe he didn't unclip. I know.
Yeah, who knows? Could have been something.
Could have been anything. They had clipless pedals in the whole 9 yards. So. Yeah. But I guess the point is that I've come to appreciate not thinking as much about the tire and traction problem with the wider tires, because you can just about float over anything with these tires, and that's liberating. I mean, I'm willing to give up, I guess, some of the efficiency for the comfort and the security of riding on them. Yeah. And I think I've seen multiple people post about, if I can ride more comfortably, if my hands don't get numb, if my bottom doesn't hurt as bad, if I can stay in the saddle longer and ride longer comfortably, I can make more miles that way. Then, maybe I'm not going as fast or as efficiently, but maybe I can just stay in the saddle longer. And maybe that's how I accomplish my mileage for the day, as opposed to the guy who gets there faster and more efficiently, but with skinnier tires. So I think everything's a compromise. That's the thing you learn. There is no perfect bike. It's just what do you want to do with it. So.
Preferences.
Yeah. What else?
That's probably all I had sort of really put together as far as my thoughts on the end of the trip.
If you look back on 2019, what do you think the highlights were for your biking in 2019?
Well, this is among them. This island cycle was really among them for sure.
Yeah.
And riding across South Dakota was really just it was phenomenal. It was just it was a real confidence booster because I had kind of built up miles and, but you just don't really know until you dive in and do a long ride. Like it was about, I don't know what, 60 or 70 miles a day averaging, and some hills, some sun, some headwind, but it wasn't the most hilly ride a person can do, but it was my first major undertaking.
And it was a solid, was it 7 days?
7 days, no rest. Yeah, no rest
Solid
days.
7 days, riding 70, average of 70 miles per day, some 100-mile days, right?
There was one that was, I believe, it was 94 or something like that.
A 94-mile day, but long days on a bike consistently, that's something that we don't often do.
Yeah, you got to commit. You got to really free up your schedule if you're able to do that.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky I was able to do that. And I did a one-day 50-mile ride in the St. Louis area. They call it the Tour de Wildwood. It's just pretty hilly, mostly road bikes, and then there's me on this big steel frame monster tire thing, huffing up these hills and having a blast, just sweat running off me. It was crazy, but I had a blast.
Yeah.
I really did. But I tell you what, I mean, it's hard to choose because everyone was a little different, but we went back to Kentucky and did some hammock camping. That was fun.
Yeah, that was good. And there's videos out there about that on my channel if you've not watched those. That was a hard ride for me because I was not in shape, not prepared, didn't prepare for anything, and then some pretty aggressive. I joked around about them being goat trails. They were paved, but they're goat trails. It was like lots of hills.
And all of a sudden, it would be this narrow. I mean, I don't know how you could get two cars on these roads.
Yeah, like almost like single track paved. Sort of. It was weird.
Yeah, it was a bizarre little place.
But I still had fun on that ride. And we did hammock camping, which I had never done before, which was really pretty fantastic. As we've talked about in the previous podcast.
Yeah.
But you kind of learn what to look for and what won't work. Like you've got to have campsites with trees, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Which is
Talk about being unprepared. We didn't even research that when we
totally just
we had
winging it.
We had a couple moments where we didn't have a place really to stay. It was kind of funny.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was I didn't do much riding this year like that though, so I can't really say that I have a year in review or best highlights because I didn't do hardly any riding this year. It was one of those weird years with business stuff, work stuff, where we just didn't get away like we did historically. But I'm looking forward to 2020. If I look forward at 2020, what do you think about?
Well, I want to just add something that I did with the South Dakota trip. I coupled that to a fundraiser. It's easy to do.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
This one was for the month of, I think, was it June? There was called the Great American Cycle Challenge or something, and it goes to a foundation that puts money toward pediatric cancer research. But you can find items like that, and then just whatever ride you're going to do. If it coincides with one of these fundraisers that are pretty open-ended, you can add that to whatever you're doing and really give it some extra meaning and support a great cause. And it generates a little bit more buzz on the social media. Folks kind of checked in on my progress in June because of that.
Yeah.
It wasn't a huge following, but it's something I think that adds a dimension to those things.
No,
and
it's a great point. Yeah.
Whatever we end up doing, I would like to try to work something like that in.
Yeah.
I would love to come back to Florida and do the Atlantic coast, go down the Keys. We talked about Alligator Alley.
Biking across Alligator Alley or something. Yeah, it's beautiful down here. I mean, one thing about it, we talked about this too, that it's mostly flat. There are a few hills in places, but I mean, it's not mostly flat. Very cycling friendly. There's a lot of cyclists here. A lot of bike paths and a lot of bike lanes available. A lot of trails down here that you can take advantage of. And the weather, obviously, is beautiful in the wintertime. Now, the summertime, it's going to be hot and humid.
But you'll pay for it there.
But, yeah.
You don't have to go far to get some refreshments, too. I mean, there's always a little place to sit down, have lunch, a drink, and listen to someone play some music,
Yeah. I mean, things in 2020 that we've talked about doing the bourbon bike burn again.
Yeah.
The Kentucky bourbon ride that we did a couple years ago.
And that
think
fills
that would be
up.
fun.
You sort of have
Yeah,
to get on that early and book
We'll
that.
probably get an email about it when it opens up for registration. But I'd like to do that again because we had fun at that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Lots of people gathered there. You have mostly road cyclists, honestly.
yeah.
But you and I showed up last time with just regular old bikes. So
Yeah.
you can go with anything, and they're very open. But it's
Yeah.
good support, sag stops, the whole 9 yards if you're into that.
Yeah.
Kind of you camp in one area and then do day rides out from there for a couple days, 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
I'm excited about doing that again. And I think I'd like to see us bike across the Katy Trail all the way.
Yeah.
We've talked about doing that for a while and include the Rock Island Spur maybe.
Yep.
So in essence, that's all the way across the state of Missouri.
Yep.
Now, this last year, we had issues with the Katy Trail having closures due to flooding and all kinds of stuff, and we don't know what the status of that is officially or as it is right now. But I'm anticipating that they'll be working on getting that cleaned up for this next year. But I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
That's that's probably 300 miles with the new spur.
With the spur and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about a couple distant places. I've had my eye on Texas.
Right.
Big Bend National Park, and there's a Big Bend State Park that has a couple different features for bike packing and camping. I think would be really fun.
Yeah, we've talked about doing maybe something like that the end of February, March-ish time frame, fitting something like that in. We've also talked about there's a kind of a Texas hill country route which goes around Austin.
Austin, yeah.
There's kind of a circle around Austin that lots of folks talk about is just beautiful. It's a good ride. It is hill country though, so you want to be ready for hills. So I've got some work to do.
Yeah.
Other
Who
than that,
knows?
yeah, it could be lots of stuff, but we'll certainly keep everybody updated on what's happening. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for following along with another episode. We'll have this up on YouTube and on all the podcast locations, and we will see you again probably in Missouri this next time, though, because we're wrapping up Florida.
Yep, that's it.
All right. See you later.